Your promotion didn't buy you freedom. It just bought you a much more expensive, heavily financed cage. If you are ready to dismantle the synthetic financial illusions keeping you exhausted and actually take control of your capital, subscribe. There is a terrifying statistical reality that the modern banking sector, the global credit industry, and the luxury goods market desperately hope you never figure out. A massive, rapidly growing percentage of high-income earners, the exact people driving the heavily engineered luxury SUVs, living in the highly desired gated communities, and wearing the meticulously curated designer outfits, are mathematically closer to total, irreversible financial ruin than a 20-year-old college student making minimum wage. You have been conditioned since birth by a relentless machine of media and marketing to believe that earning more money automatically translates to building wealth. Yet, if you look closely at your own life and the lives of those around you, a disturbing pattern emerges. The more you make, the more trapped you feel. You are constantly running on an invisible, highly calibrated treadmill that mathematically accelerates every single time your salary increases, ensuring that no matter how fast you run, you never actually reach the destination of financial peace. Think back to the precise moment you received your first real paycheck, or the day you moved into your very first, incredibly basic apartment. At that exact moment in time, you had almost zero disposable income, but your baseline for survival was incredibly low and completely manageable. You slept on a cheap, lumpy mattress that you probably bought secondhand or took from your childhood bedroom. You cooked inexpensive food, genuinely learning how to stretch a single batch of meals over 3 or 4 days without a second thought. You found deep, genuine entertainment in things that cost absolutely nothing. You walked to places instead of taking expensive ride shares just because it was raining. You spent hours just sitting in a cheap living room talking with friends because going out to a high-end bar was simply not an option in your reality. At that specific formative moment in your life, you looked at your meager, depressing bank account balance, and you thought to yourself with absolute certainty that if you could just make $20,000 more a year, you would be incredibly rich. You swore to yourself with total conviction that you would save every single penny of that extra money because you had already mastered the art of surviving on so little. Then, reality happened. The corporate machine recognized your effort, and you actually got the raise. The extra money finally hit your checking account, and for a few days, you felt like a genius. But the massive, impenetrable savings portfolio you promised yourself would be built never materialized. Instead, a quiet, insidious psychological shift occurred completely without your permission. That cheap mattress you slept completely fine on for 3 years suddenly felt utterly unacceptable. The reliable, slightly older car you drove without complaint suddenly felt like a glaring, embarrassing liability the moment you had to park it next to your newly promoted coworkers' leased vehicles. The cheap, local takeout you used to genuinely love and look forward to on Friday nights was quickly replaced by reservations at mid-tier restaurants. Within a year, those mid-tier restaurants were completely replaced by reservations at fine dining establishments where a single dinner bill easily equaled what you used to spend on groceries for an entire month. You did not save the difference between your old survival income and your new corporate income. You simply absorbed that massive financial difference into a newly inflated, highly expensive baseline of daily existence. You justified every single impulsive purchase, every single lifestyle upgrade, and every single new monthly subscription by telling yourself a very specific, highly destructive, and socially acceptable lie. You worked hard, you put in the hours, and therefore, you inherently deserved it. This brings us to the hidden, systemic problem that is quietly destroying the financial future of the working class and the upper middle class alike. It is the pervasive, deeply ingrained, and entirely false belief that your lifestyle is supposed to be a direct reward for your income. You have been meticulously taught by every brightly lit billboard you drive past, every carefully scripted television show you consume, and every hyper-targeted, algorithmic advertisement deployed onto your phone screen that the natural, expected progression of a successful adult life is to continuously upgrade your physical surroundings to perfectly match your incoming cash flow. You are told that as your salary scales, your square footage must scale, your engine size must scale, and the thread count of your clothing must scale. This is not a natural law of human existence. It is a highly engineered, synthetic, predatory system designed with one specific, ruthless goal: to efficiently separate you from the fruits of your labor the exact second you acquire them. You are operating under a deeply flawed, culturally enforced psychological script that equates consumption with success. By blindly following this script, you are unknowingly volunteering to hand your newly acquired, hard-earned wealth directly back to the very corporations that manufactured your psychological desire for their products in the first place. You genuinely think you are treating yourself to the finer things in life, elevating your status, and enjoying your success. But in reality, you are actually just volunteering to enter a higher tax bracket of endless, exhausting consumerism. The entire global economy relies on your absolute inability to be satisfied with what you currently have. If millions of people suddenly stopped buying things they didn't actually need, with money they didn't actually have, just to impress people they didn't even genuinely like, entire market sectors would collapse overnight. You are the biological battery powering a machine that does not care if you end up broken, exhausted, and completely broke at 65 years old, just as long as you keep swiping your highly leveraged credit card today. When you peel back the layers of this self-destructive, widespread behavior, you do not find a lack of intelligence. You do not find a lack of basic financial literacy or an inability to do basic math. What you find is an unconscious operating system driven entirely by biological status anxiety and a desperate, primal craving for external validation from the tribe. You're not buying a luxury vehicle because its complex German engineering genuinely gets you to your destination 3 minutes faster or noticeably more safely. You are buying a highly manufactured, incredibly expensive feeling of superiority. You are purchasing a $60,000 steel and leather shield to protect your fragile ego against the perceived judgment of your peers. Your primitive, evolutionary brain has been effectively hijacked by the hedonic treadmill. This treadmill is a cruel, inescapable psychological trap where the intense, fiery dopamine hit of a new purchase, the exhilarating thrill of the unboxing, the intoxicating smell of the new car interior, the undeniable rush of the first time you wear the designer jacket into a crowded room, fades almost immediately. Within a few weeks, or sometimes even just a few days, your neurochemistry aggressively adapts to the new baseline. The extravagant luxury simply becomes your new normal. The thrill evaporates completely, leaving you feeling just as hollow and empty as you felt before the purchase. But there is a devastating catch. You are now left with significantly less capital, significantly more debt, and a newly established, terrifying craving for the next, exponentially more expensive upgrade just to feel a baseline level of normal. Because your entire identity and sense of self have become intrinsically tied to what you can afford to publicly display, your internal self-worth becomes entirely dependent on maintaining a hyperinflated, highly stressful financial burn rate. You are constantly, desperately broadcasting your income to the world through the embroidered logo on your chest, the exclusive zip code of your 30-year mortgage, the curated aesthetic of your overseas vacations, and the specific artisanal brand of your morning coffee. You do this exhausting performance every single day because you are terrified on a deep subconscious level that if you suddenly stop spending, if you suddenly stop actively participating in the visual arms race of modern society, people might think you are falling behind. You are tragically trading your actual, mathematical financial security for the fleeting, entirely useless illusion of status. The long-term, unavoidable consequence of this psychological surrender is a state of permanent, agonizing financial fragility that is perfectly disguised as absolute success. From the outside looking in, you look incredibly rich on paper. Your social media presence is absolutely flawless. Your credit score is excellent because you are a master of managing debt. But your actual net worth, the liquid capital you genuinely control and can deploy at a moment's notice, is a complete ghost town. You're trapped in what the financial industry accurately calls golden handcuffs. You have forced yourself to rigidly maintain a high-stress, relentlessly demanding job that you likely deeply despise, simply because you have legally obligated yourself to thousands upon thousands of dollars in recurring, inescapable monthly payments. Your massive mortgage, your two highly financed car notes, your credit card minimums, your private school tuitions, and your premium insurance policies have created a massive, towering monthly financial threshold just to exist on a Tuesday. If your income were to suddenly stop tomorrow due to an unexpected corporate layoff, a sudden physical illness, or an unforeseen, sweeping economic downturn, your entire identity and carefully constructed lifestyle would violently collapse within 60 days. You have entirely stripped yourself of the greatest asset a human being can possess: optionality. You cannot take a calculated, exciting risk. You cannot take a year off to start the business you constantly dream about. You cannot confidently walk away from a toxic boss, a manipulative partner, or a hostile work environment because your lifestyle has morphed into a terrifying, parasitic entity that requires constant, aggressive, nonstop feeding. You have meticulously, carefully built a beautiful, incredibly comfortable, heavily mortgaged prison, and you are the one eagerly handing over the keys to the warden on the first of every single month. You have traded your actual, breathing freedom for the mere appearance of having made it. The massive mid-script realization, the singular, jarring moment you can fundamentally break this generational cycle and step off the accelerating treadmill forever, is the moment you finally realize that a loud, visually expensive lifestyle is almost never a reflection of true wealth. Lifestyle is merely a reflection of what you have completely surrendered to the market. Wealth is precisely the opposite of what you see with your eyes. True, unshakable wealth is entirely invisible. Wealth is the luxury car deliberately not purchased. It is the expensive, heavy watch not bought to impress a stranger. It is the first-class flight upgrade politely and quietly declined. Wealth is the rapidly expanding, powerful gap between your fragile ego and your actual income. The money you actively, consciously choose not to spend is the absolute only money that possesses the mathematical power to actually buy you back your future time. Unspent capital is the only mechanism on earth that converts your raw, exhausting daily labor into self-sustaining, compounding power rather than depreciating, rusting, decaying liabilities. When you choose to upgrade your lifestyle to match your peers, you are eagerly paying for the present moment. When you aggressively expand the gap between your income and your expenses, you are purchasing the rest of your life. Look at the devastating, life-altering, multi-decade contrast between two entirely different mental frameworks when encountering a massive, sudden jump in income, such as a promotion that completely doubles their salary. Person A gets the massive raise and immediately, instinctively begins frantically calculating how much more house and exactly how much more car they can somehow squeeze out of the bank with their newly expanded monthly allowance. They view the new, heavy income exclusively as an authorization for new spending power. They violently upgrade their entire existence, moving out of their perfectly fine neighborhood to a wealthier one, leasing a much faster, louder car, and flying to more exotic, highly photogenic destinations. By doing this, they are actively, willingly locking themselves into a much higher, more terrifying tier of daily stress. They are now entirely, hopelessly dependent on keeping that new, demanding, high-pressure salary forever just to keep their heads above the rising water. They have significantly more money flowing rapidly through their hands, but they capture absolutely none of it. They have simply transformed into a much more expensive, highly stressed conduit for the global economy. Now look closely at the terrifying, quiet power of Person B. Person B gets the exact same massive, life-changing raise and changes absolutely nothing about their daily, physical existence. They consciously, purposefully freeze their lifestyle at their previous, completely acceptable, thoroughly tested comfort level. They treat the new, heavy income not as a cultural license to consume more manufactured goods, but as a massive, aggressive, unyielding capital injection directly into their freedom fund. Person A looks undeniably, obviously wealthy to strangers stopped next to them at a red light in traffic. But person A is secretly suffocating, exactly one missed corporate paycheck away from a devastating financial and psychological crisis. Person B drives an unremarkable, slightly older, completely paid-off car and wears plain, unbranded clothing. But person B has aggressively bought the ultimate, unassailable, elite luxury of modern human life. The ability to casually walk away from any room, any job, any negotiation, and any toxic situation at a moment's notice without a single, solitary drop of financial anxiety. To effectively execute this massive, terrifying shift in your own life and completely rewrite your internal financial operating system, you must implement several practical, incredibly uncompromising mental models. First, you must aggressively and completely sever the emotional cord between your internal self-worth and your external material output. You must look in the mirror and logically, coldly recognize that signaling your financial success to random strangers who do not care about you and will forget you exist in 5 minutes is the most expensive, utterly pointless, financially suicidal hobby on planet Earth. It yields a devastatingly negative return on your life energy. If you genuinely need to purchase an expensive, shiny object just to feel a fleeting sense of significance when you walk into a room, you do not actually have a money problem. You have a deep, gaping psychological deficit that absolutely no amount of rampant consumption will ever be able to fill. You cannot buy genuine self-respect at a brightly lit luxury boutique, and trying to do so will only leave you broke and exhausted. Second, you must forcefully establish a permanent, unbreakable lifestyle ceiling that you never, ever cross. You need to sit down in a quiet room and mathematically calculate the exact, precise amount of money it takes to live a comfortable, healthy, friction-free life that strictly meets your actual human needs, not your artificially inflated, marketing-induced wants. You lock that specific, calculated number in stone. Once you reach that baseline level of comfort, you draw a massive line in the sand. From that day forward, for the rest of your earning years, any future increase in income, every single corporate bonus, every yearly raise, every unexpected financial windfall must be legally and systematically routed away from your visible spending accounts before you even perceive it as available capital. You do not sit down and negotiate with your ego when the new money arrives in your account. You ruthlessly automate your independence, so the right decision is mathematically made before the temptation to consume even exists. Third, you must rigorously and ruthlessly audit your invisible obligations. These are the quiet, sneaky, monthly subscriptions, the highly marketed luxury conveniences, the premium digital upgrades, and the outsourced daily tasks that have slowly, quietly crept in your daily routine under the incredibly dangerous guise of saving you time or making your life slightly easier. In reality, they're just bleeding your capital dry through 1,000 tiny, unnoticeable cuts. You must aggressively strip away the fat of your existence. You have to wake up and realize that true, elite convenience is not paying someone an exorbitant, marked-up fee to deliver your groceries, so you can sit on the couch and passively watch another hour of streaming television. True convenience, absolute, elite-level, untouchable convenience, is having a personal balance sheet so phenomenally strong, so entirely impenetrable, that you completely dictate exactly how your time is spent on a random Tuesday morning while everyone else in your city is sitting in miserable rush hour traffic panicking about their upcoming performance review. Fourth, you must drastically shift your perspective and begin pricing your purchases not in arbitrary, printed dollars, but in the actual, irreplaceable, fleeting hours of your one human life required to acquire those specific dollars. When you feel the intense, burning desire to buy a $60,000 luxury vehicle, you must take that total cost and mathematically divide it by your true, actual hourly wage after taxes are violently taken out. You must stare at the terrifying result. You must deeply internalize the fact that you are trading thousands upon thousands of hours of your finite, rapidly vanishing life for a piece of assembled metal and plastic that will begin aggressively depreciating the exact second its tires touch the pavement off the dealership lot. When you realize deeply and profoundly that you are not just casually spending money, but actually spending your irreplaceable life energy, the desperate desire to consume drops dramatically. You start fiercely guarding your capital the exact same way you would instinctively guard your physical safety in a dark alley. Finally, you must completely redefine your fundamental concept of what actually constitutes a reward. A reward for years of grueling, exhausting hard work is not a massive, shiny liability that requires constant, expensive maintenance, exorbitant insurance premiums, and eventual, inevitable, highly costly replacement. A luxury boat that sits in a marina is not a reward. A high-end, heavily restricted car lease is not a reward. A true, actual reward is the quiet purchase of a boring, invisible, income-producing asset that will reliably pay you cash flow while you sleep, completely independent of your daily labor. You must actively, aggressively train your brain to get the exact same visceral, thrilling rush of dopamine from watching your total net worth quietly climb, from buying back your future time, and for securing your absolute, unquestionable independence that you used to get from carrying a heavy, branded designer bag out of a retail store. You have to make the accumulation of unspent, powerful wealth your new, unbreakable addiction. Every single dollar you spend actively attempting to look wealthy to the outside world is a dollar aggressively working to prevent you from actually being wealthy behind closed doors. The more you rapidly scale your lifestyle to meticulously match the fleeting expectations of your peers, the more you violently and permanently shrink your own freedom. You are not working 50 exhausting hours a week to build a meaningful, peaceful life. You're working 50 hours a week to desperately maintain an exhausting, incredibly fragile, highly stressful illusion that could shatter at any moment. True power is not the ability to walk into any store and buy anything you want at any given time. True power, the absolute only kind that actually matters in the end, is the quiet, deeply unshakable realization that you simply no longer need to. You don't own your lifestyle owns you. Every dollar you earn is a unit of stored human energy. You can burn it today to maintain an expensive image for strangers who do not care about you, or you can feed it into the machine that will eventually buy you back the only asset that actually matters, your time. Stop working to show off success. Start working to secure freedom. If you are serious about mastering the actual system, subscribe. If this truth helped you wake up, hit like. Share it only with those ready to break the chains. The choice is yours. Stick to the rules.